On today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast, our 2022-23 fantasy hockey preview. If you haven't had your fantasy drafts yet, this is the place to be. And to just kind of give a fresh perspective of what fantasy hockey expects from the Buffalo Sabres in this season. We're presented by Built Bar, a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. Go to BuiltBar.com, use the promo code LOCKEDON15, and you'll get 15% off your next order. Let's get going.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. What's up, everybody? Great start. Flying start here. Joe DiBiase on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Just 5 days away. Did I already get that wrong? What a start. Should I hit the start over button? I'm fired up. 5 days to go until the start of the Buffalo Sabres season. And that means that we're still in preview mode, which means we'll have a couple of divisional previews coming up in the coming days. The Lightning, the Panthers, the Leafs, of course, the Red Wings and Senators are going to be the two most interesting teams, I think, because they made big swings in the offseason to get better right away. So that is coming up in the coming days on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today, though, a fantasy hockey preview specifically for the Sabres. If you haven't had your draft yet, you want one of your hometown team guys, well, today, this is the place to be. Find some information. We got ADPs. I've got my opinions on where you should draft each Sabre: Dahlin, Thompson, Power, Tuch, Skinner, Olafson, Krebs, and Eric Comrie. We got info and all that stuff for you coming up in just a little bit. As always, be sure to follow us on Twitter at Locked On Sabres. I'm on Twitter at Sneaky Joe Sports. Leave us a review wherever you may be listening. We always appreciate that. Nice 5-star review. And on our YouTube channel, like and subscribe there. Be sure to drop a comment in there. Keep it friendly, though. You know, those YouTube comment sections can get out of control fast. Our listeners are usually pretty darn good about it. But we always do appreciate a comment. And today's question of the day actually comes from Jeff on our YouTube channel. And his question is about the goaltending situation. Is there any chance Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen could start the season with the Sabres? Jeff, my answer on that is no. I don't think there's a chance he starts the season. Should there be a chance? That I might want to answer yes. In fact, I think it's becoming more and more clear that if he's not the best goalie on the team, he's one of the best two goalies on the team. Last year, statistically, in a limited sample, he was the best goalie on the Sabres. This year, is it out of the realm of possibility that right now he's their best goaltender? Of course not. But I don't think, given the moves they made, Anderson on a one-year deal, Comrie on a short-term deal, I think Luukkonen is going to start the year in Rochester. Also, given what Kevin Adams has said about the subject matter as well. Thank you for the question, though. Fantasy hockey. So again, we've got a couple of different forwards, only 2 defensemen, and really only 1 goalie to talk about. But we're going to fly through them here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. And we are going to start with the forward group before we get to the defensemen and then inevitably to the goaltending situation. So let's go in order of ADP. Average draft position. So a couple of things. Fantasy hockey lingo that if you're not familiar with fantasy and you're not really sure like what something means, I'm going to use the term ADP a lot. If you don't know what ADP means, sorry, I'm just unwrapping my dog from Finn, really? So for those listening right now, my dog is currently laying on the cord to my microphone. All right. I think we managed. Sorry for that. Sorry about that. Anyways, ADP means average draft position. So I will give you the number overall, the round, and of course where they're going positionally, which I think for a lot of these players is the most interesting part of where these guys are being drafted is who are they going ahead of? Who are they going behind? So let's start at the forward group. Who is the highest drafted Buffalo Sabre? Not that hard to guess. Tage Thompson is the highest drafted Sabre in fantasy hockey. His average draft position using data from Yahoo and Fantrax, the consensus ADP, Thompson is going 101. There's no forward for the Sabres inside the top 100. 32 teams times 3. Other teams might have 3 or 4 guys before the Sabres even get 1. Thompson at 101. Round 8, pick 4. So round 8, pick 4. That means he's going as the 13th right winger and the 27th winger overall. Thompson is going just ahead of Thompson is Tomas Hertl, Joe Pavelski, Tim Stützle. And going behind the likes of Tage Thompson, Teuvo Teravainen, Anze Kopitar, Jordan Kyrou, Brian Rust. A lot of good talent that is going behind Tage Thompson. I would rank Thompson a little bit higher. I'm comfortable picking him over Hertl. I'm comfortable picking him over Stützle for sure, who is a unknown commodity, even though he had a really darn good year last year. We don't know if this is it for Tim Stützle. You're drafting Stützle thinking there's a higher ceiling to come. Thompson, he probably is maxed out. Is he getting more than 30 goals? Maybe there's a 40-goal season there, but I'm talking a marginal improvement, if anything. Sure, clip this and tell me I'm an idiot if he gets 41 goals, but I'm not considering 3 goals difference to be some massive jump. I don't think he's going to 50, and I don't think he's going to 90 points, which that would qualify as a massive jump, the likes that Stützle is capable of. So, I would be okay taking him above Hertl. I would be okay taking him above Joe Pavelski. I would take him over Stützle as well, depending on what your team looks like. If you're looking for some upside, what you've got ahead of you, if you've got a lot of young guys, and take Thompson. If you got a lot of veterans, take a Stützle. So that's Thompson, 101. And is he deserving of being the highest drafted Sabre? I think he is. Second on the list, forward-wise, is Alex Tuch. Alex Tuch is going 162nd overall. That is round 13, pick 5. So we're talking late in the draft. We're already getting to our second Sabre forward. Tuch is going over Oliver Bjorkstrand of the Seattle Kraken, over Sam Bennett, over Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. He's going behind Tyler Seguin, Jake Sanderson, Vinny Trocheck. So the thing with Tuch is he's got a lot of this intangible value, right? I don't think he's got championship winning potential on your fantasy hockey team. And for that reason, I don't really like the idea of drafting Alex Tuch at all. I don't think I would draft Alex Tuch. Yes, he's going to give you some production, but I want to be chasing championship level upside. Give me 35 plus goals, 40 goals. Give me 80 points. Give me something along those lines. And what's Tuch? Tuch for his career. Last year, 38 points in 50 games. So if you average that out over 82 games, yeah, not too bad. We're talking about almost a 60-point player. That might be it for him. 52 is his career high in points before this past season. And again, he only got to 38. It was half a season. He's never eclipsed 20 goals. He got to 20 goals one time, but he has never surpassed the 20-goal mark. So for those reasons, I don't see a lot of offensive upside in Tuch. I think he's just a darn good player. You know what you're going to get from a Sabres perspective. He's one of those guys that's better in real life than he is in fantasy. So Alex Tuch, round 13, I would stay away. Jeff Skinner is going 195 overall, round 16, pick 3. That is left winger 33. Now, Tuch is going 3 rounds ahead of Skinner. I would draft Jeff Skinner over Alex Tuch because we've seen Jeff Skinner score 40 goals. This past year, we've seen Jeff Skinner score 30 goals. You're going to get the goal-scoring production if it goes well for Skinner. Tuch is going to be annoying. Tuch is going to be the guy where I keep him on my team. He's good enough to not drop, but he's not quite good enough to be in my starting lineup, so he sits on your bench. Skinner, we'll know what type of year we're having from Skinner. He's either going to be 30-plus goals and he's in your starting lineup, or he's going to poop the bed again and you're going to be dropping him. So I take the flyer on Skinner because the goal-scoring production is much higher than it is in Alex Tuch. He is going behind Cam Atkinson, behind Blake Wheeler, behind Andrew Mangiapane. I think that's probably fair. Skinner going ahead of Travis Konechny, Victor Olafson, we'll get to him in a second, and Joel Eriksson. I think that's fair. I think Skinner's probably properly rated. He's a guy that I would want to take a swing on with the last pick, or one of the last picks of my fantasy hockey draft. And that was me scrambling to unplug and replug my headphones in because the dog, this guy right here for our video listeners, hey, You're joining in on the show. You're joining in on the show. This guy. This is the culprit. The wet bandit. All right. You're good. Okay. Who are we up next? Victor Olafson. Victor Olafson is next in our fantasy hockey average draft position. 198 overall. Round 16. Pick 6. Left winger. 34. Olafson's only going 3 picks behind Jeff Skinner. And actually, let's just group Peyton Krebs in here too. Peyton Krebs is only going 6 picks after Victor Olafson. All 3, Skinner, Olafson, Krebs, their average draft position is all round 16. These are all guys that fantasy hockey players are taking a late round flyer on. And that means pick your poison, right? Are all these guys going to break out? Probably not. Krebs, by the way, is listed as a left winger here. So what you have here is left winger 33 in Skinner, left winger 34 in Olafson, and left winger 35 in Peyton Krebs. The guy I would go for here the most is Victor Olafson, because I think his goal-scoring production could jump a big way. I think we've yet to see the high ceiling or the highest mark of Victor Olafson's career. His career high right now is 20 goals. I think we are going to see multiple seasons higher than 20 goals for Victor Olafson. And last year was a little weird. I know on the surface it looks bad, right? 20 goals on 72 games for a pure goal scorer. That's not great. But remember the wrist injury last season. The wrist injury took him out of commission. And then when he got back, he was not right. It was clear he wasn't right. And he went 3-4 months without scoring a goal. That's not going to happen to Victor Olafson. If he stays healthy, it's not going to happen. And what you get from Olafson in fantasy is power play production. You don't get that from Skinner. Skinner scores even strength goals. In fact, he is one of the best players in the league at scoring even strength goals in his career. But what that means is he doesn't score as many on the power play. Last year, Skinner scored 5 power play goals. That's it. 5 of 33. Olafson, who remember went months without being able to shoot because of his wrist, he scored 7 power play goals of 20. In fact, Olafson for his career is it's something crazy. Like 40% of his goal production for his career is on the power play. Here we go. 55 goals, 27 power play goals for his career. Almost half of Olafson's goals for his career are power play goals, and most fantasy leagues play where you get a bonus for power play production. So I'd go Olafson over Skinner. Krebs is a little more intriguing. Krebs looks a little bit of a sexier pick. You draft Peyton Krebs in your draft, and everybody around you goes, ooh, okay, Peyton Krebs, I like that. Why? Because he's young. Because he's a guy that we have untapped potential. He's only 21 years old, and he took a step last year. A step to being in the NHL. And that's about it. 22 points in 48 games. We're talking about a 40 to 50 point pace, not quite at 50. And I think that's what you would be hoping for from Peyton Krebs this year. I think Sabre fans would take 50 points, would they not? How much higher can he go? The jury is out, of course, on that. But the thing with Krebs is for him to give you fantasy production that matches an Olafson or matches a Skinner, he's going to have to pile up assists because he just is not a good goal scorer. And I'm not sure that part of his game will ever be there. He just doesn't have a great shot, and he has a pass-first mentality. That's okay. The Sabres need a couple of guys like that. They have a lot of shooters, and it's good to have a pass-first mentality type player. So for that reason, I like Krebs to generate assists, but he's going to have to generate... If Olafson scores 27 goals, just throwing a number out there, and Skinner scores 30 goals, Krebs is going to have to put up 45 to 50 assists to match that. And then we're talking about a 60-plus point player. That's what he would need to do. For me, he would have to be 60-plus points, given that a lot of those points would be assists to pass Jeff Skinner and Olafson. So Olafson's my favorite late-round flyer of those 3. Skinner second and Krebs third. We'll take a quick timeout when we come back. I want to get into the 2 defensemen that are currently being drafted from the Buffalo Sabres. One is going a lot higher. In fact, I'm not going to lie, both are going a lot higher than I would have expected coming into this season. So we'll talk about Rasmus Dahlin and Owen Power when we come back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. As always, we are brought to you by Built Bar. I just ate a Built Bar right before going on the show. Do I sound a little energetic? Do I sound a little fired up? I am pretty fired up. Why? I ate a Built Bar before I got going. I should have been working out. I should have been at the gym. I should have been powerlifting or something, because these things really get you going because of all the protein and because of all the energy that they provide you. And if you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, tastes like a candy bar. It's so good. It's literally like a marshmallow, but it can be flavored, cookie dough. They have different flavors, coconut, inside of 100% real chocolate. Cookie dough chunk puffs. It's my favorite. They're only 160 calories. They are a whopping 15 grams of protein. Run to built.com, snag a box for you and your family. It'll be the perfect treat. You could find really good hiding place and just hoard them for yourself. I know that's kind of what I do. I'm not going to lie. Like all Built Bars, cookie dough chunk puff, 100% covered in chocolate. That means they're healthy and tasty. Chocolate covered cookie dough with a light, fluffy texture. How can you beat that? So good. You're going to love the new cookie dough chunk puff. I'm good to order as many as I can, so maybe actually wait a couple minutes and then do it. Make sure I get mine first. Go to built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15, and we'll get 15% off your order. Use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Let's continue through our fantasy hockey preview for the Buffalo Sabres in 2022-23. We talked about the forwards that are being drafted: Thompson, Tuch, Skinner, Olafson, Krebs. 5 forwards for the Sabres are being drafted right now. No Dylan Cousins. No Vinny Hinostroza, no Jack Quinn, interestingly. No Jack Quinn. He's a guy that keep an eye on, though, because I could see picking him up, after a couple of weeks into the season, maybe even 1 week into the season. Defenseman, only 2. I think that's probably fair, right? Dahlin and Power. Samuelsson is good, but he's just not going to put up offensive production. Ilya Lyubushkin is not going to put up offensive production. And Jacob Bryson's a fun player, and we think of him as offensive, but he hasn't put up points, really, at any level. AHL, NHL, that are worthy of being drafted in fantasy, and he doesn't get the ice time, nor the power play minutes. So I'm not drafting any Sabres defenseman that's not named Owen or Rasmus. And starting with Dahlin. Dahlin is going really high. Average draft position of 70. That is 41 spots higher than Thompson, the next closest Sabre. Dahlin is going in the middle of the 5th round. Pick 8 in the 5th round is his average draft position. He is going as the 14th defenseman. 14. That's really good. Only 13 defensemen in the NHL are going above Rasmus Dahlin. Noah Dobson, Alex Pietrangelo are going in the same round as Dahlin, just a little bit ahead of him. Quinn Hughes is going a little bit ahead of him. Morgan Riley. But see, we're talking here about quality number 2 fantasy defenseman that you could also get away with being your number 1. Going just behind Dahlin, Mackenzie Weegar, Dougie Hamilton, Seth Jones. I think that's appropriate. Brent Burns is another guy, by the way. It's going just ahead of Dahlin. But that's a really high draft position, which means he's expensive. Now, if he does what he did last year but for a whole season, how many points are we talking about here, right? He had 53 last year and 13 goals. Could we be talking about 15-plus goals and 70 points? I think that's why he's being drafted there. I feel like the expectation is Dahlin took a step forward. Now he's going to do it for a whole season. Now he's going to have a better defense partner in Mattias Samuelsson than he had last year in Henri Jokiharju. Oh, and Owen Power is there to help lift some of the burden of him defensively off in terms of defensive situations. Now Granato can deploy Dahlin. Offensive zone starts and number 1 power play time. I guess he was already doing that anyway. That's the big key for Dahlin. Is he going to stay on the power play? And I'd be stunned if he didn't. So because of that, I like this draft position for him. I would, if you want a Sabre, even pick him a little high. End of the 4th round is the extent I would go, but I would feel comfortable picking Dahlin at the end of the 4th round in fantasy hockey. Last year on the power play that made him so valuable. 3 power play goals and 18 power play assists. We're talking about, again, about 40% of his production that came on the power play. You should get a bonus for that in fantasy hockey. So I like Dahlin, despite the fact that he is very expensive. The only other Sabre defenseman that is being drafted is Owen Power, and he's going high. ADP 126. He's the 3rd Sabre drafted. Dahlin goes at 70, Thompson at 101, and Power at 126. Middle of the 10th round, pick 5 of round 10. He is defenseman 31 off the board, which means he's higher than a couple of teams' number 1 defensemen. Now, here's why I don't like Owen Power as a fantasy pick in 2022-23. One, the name power. That's going to suck people in. Again, kind of the Krebs factor. The guy that drafts Owen Power in your fantasy league is going to get a reaction. The whole room's going to go, ooh, Owen Power. All right, I like it. Because he's new. It's the new shiny toy. And I love Owen Power for the Sabres. I don't love him for fantasy. I don't see the offensive numbers coming his way. And I've taught, if there's a theme of this episode for fantasy hockey, it is chase the power play points. That is going to be your stabilizing force. Chase the power play points. It's going to be your bonus. It's going to be your week winning type of performance. Power, I just can't see him getting that many power play minutes. Maybe power play 2. He probably will get power play 2. But he's not touching power play 1. That's going to be Rasmus Dahlin's role. So because of that, it's really going to limit his offensive upside. And I think he's going to get more defensive zone starts than a lot of rookie defensemen like him. I think Don Granato is going to put him in that shutdown defenseman role and allow Dahlin to flourish and take more chances offensively against some weaker lines. So I think they're going to put a lot on his plate right away as a rookie because I think he can handle it. But that means that it's going to limit how much offense I think he's able to get. 30 to 40 points, I think that's probably what we're talking about. And 30 to 40 points, the guys going behind Owen Power, Justin Falk, Bo Byram of the Colorado Avalanche, Alec Martinez, who's now probably going to be playing power play minutes and top pair minutes for the Vegas Golden Knights. I'm not drafting him above any of those 3, especially Bo Byram, who I love for this season. Other guys in this range, Torrey Krug, I would take Torrey Krug above Power. Miro Heiskanen, I would take Miro Heiskanen. Evan Bouchard of the Oilers. I don't love Power fantasy this year because, one, someone's going to draft him too high. So you're going to have to pay a premium. And I don't even see him meeting his ADP. So I'm out on Owen Power for fantasy this season. We'll come back. We'll talk about the goaltender, Eric Comrie. And also, is any other Sabre goalie being drafted? It's not the guy you might think, but Comrie is. We'll tell you where he's going and where I like him being ranked for this season, what his prospects are when we come back on our fantasy hockey preview, Buffalo Sabres edition here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Welcome back to the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks everybody for tuning in today, making us your first listen every day. We talked about the forwards for the Sabres in fantasy hockey and the defensemen. Now let's get to the goaltending. Starting with Eric Comrie. Eric Comrie is being undrafted. He is undrafted for his ADP. But we do have him ranked by the position. He's goalie 36. Not good. Behind backups like Pittsburgh's Casey DeSmith and the Islanders' Semyon Varlamov. The only starter that I found going in the same range as Comrie is Philip Grubauer of the Seattle Kraken. I like taking a flyer on Eric Comrie. I like him more than backups. You should take him over a backup. He's going to get more games than Casey DeSmith. Casey DeSmith's going to play 33 games. Comrie could play 50. He could play 50, 45 to 50, and he could be great. He could be. I mean, because last year he was number 1 in the NHL in save percentage. I know it was only 19 games, but if he does that or anything near that, it doesn't have to be number 1, but if he's number 13, 14, and starting a quality amount of games on a team that's expected to be around an 80-point team and maybe has the upside to be a 90-point team, that's good. That's as good as you're going to get as a last-round flyer for goaltending. So if you want to do the zero goalie strategy, Comrie would be a good guy to do it with. Go from goalie to goalie, pick up some other guys you could pick up and drop, start them. But Comrie could be kind of a stabilizing. I've got a starter. I've got a guy that can play games. I like Comrie. I think his upside is there. I think the price is nothing, right? You're getting him for free right now. I draft him. In your Buffalo leagues, you're probably not. I should say this. One thing about all these players that I probably should have mentioned off the top, all these ADPs, where to pick them. If you want them in your league, assuming you're a Buffalo listener, not everybody is, but if you're a Buffalo listener and you're in a Buffalo fantasy hockey league, you probably have to pay a round premium. It just happens. It's a natural thing. Hometown leagues, the hometown players are going to go a little bit higher than they would otherwise. So while Comrie's undrafted here, maybe he's a 15th round pick in your fantasy hockey league. I'm good with that, though. I am good with that. I'm good picking him in one of your last 3 or 4 rounds depending on what your goalie situation looks like. So that's the prospect of Eric Comrie. The only threat to him, to me, is Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Luukkonen is only going 2 spots behind Comrie for goaltenders. Luukkonen is actually being drafted as goalie 38. So his ADP is undrafted, but he's getting drafted enough to qualify for this list. So I think that's a flyer people are taking, and maybe outside the situation don't know that he's probably starting in Rochester. I wouldn't stash him. Because it's probably going to take 3 weeks to a month minimum to get him in the lineup, and it could be as long as 6 months to get him in the lineup. I'm not waiting around for Kevin Adams to call him up. I would leave Luukkonen out there. Wouldn't stash him, wouldn't draft him. Comrie is more deserving of a roster spot to me than Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. And that's it. That's our episode. That's our show. Comrie, Luukkonen, Krebs, Olafson, Skinner, Tuch, Power, Thompson, and Dahlin. All worthy considerations for your fantasy hockey league. So hope you have fun in your drafts. We've got hockey coming on Thursday. So get those lineups set. And we will preview some divisions. We're going to talk with Armando Velquez from Locked On Panthers in the upcoming episodes, as well as Mike DiStefano from Locked On Leafs. So we'll preview a couple of Atlantic Division foes, and we'll do a full division preview coming up this week as we inch closer to the start of the Sabres season, which is coming on Thursday against the Ottawa Senators. So thanks everybody for listening today to the show. Like and subscribe us wherever you may be listening, especially on our YouTube channel. Be sure to leave a comment, a question, or a review. We would greatly appreciate it. So we'll talk to you next time here in the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Now go make your second listen Locked On NHL. The NHL season has begun. Stay up to date on everything in the hockey world. Locked On NHL, your daily 30-minute podcast.